Witch in Charm's Way, a cozy mystery audiobook, written and narrated by R.K. Dreaming. Part 28. Oberon Maltese Senior. Rich guy, handsome, powerful. Could he be Lily's sugar daddy? And our killer? He looked the part. He was dressed in an expensively tailored and closely fitted three-piece suit. The design was cool, not fusty, and looked like it belonged on a much younger man. But the vampire was lean, and it looked very good on him. Yuck. Cunning and arrogant and handsome all rolled into one. No wonder naive young women were falling at his feet. The thought of him and Lily together gave me the creeps. No way! It couldn't be him. She would never go with him. Lily had been a witch. Witches did not date vampires. It was frowned upon for obvious reasons. Magic and vampirism were not supposed to mix. And yet, Lily had been drawn to Oberon Jr. Could she have been drawn to his father too? Ew. When was this concrete poured? Agent Constantine asked Oberon Sr. I don't know, Oberon Sr. said impatiently. You will have to ask the foreman. Was it poured on Wednesday? Persisted Agent Constantine. I said I don't know. What does it matter? Said Oberon Sr. That was the night that Lily Silverswift died, said Agent Constantine. What's that got to do with me? Snapped Oberon Sr. He leaned over the edge of the pool and snarled at the crime scene team. We are already 2 weeks behind schedule, so whatever you're going to do, get it over and done with quickly. We will take as much time as we need, said Agent Constantine coolly. Oberon Sr. spun furiously to look at him, as if he could not believe the lack of respect. Do you know who I am? He shouted. Sugar, I said, before Agent Constantine could respond. Oberon Sr.'s head snapped around towards me. To some people, you're just a sweet old sugar daddy, I said. He seemed to go rigid with rage. He stalked up to me and leaned down menacingly until he was nose to nose with me. What did you say to me? He hissed. His eyes, which had been green a moment ago, now looked entirely black. A glimmer of light glinted off the incredibly sharp tips of his fangs. I felt like telling him that I was Esme Westbrim and he had better not mess with me or my granny would show him a thing or two about what it meant to be powerful. But Granny had always warned us to be careful. She would not be glad if I brought a war with the vampires to her door. You heard me, I said. Sugar. You little nobody, he hissed, the corners of his mouth turning down in contempt. I had the distinct feeling that if we weren't surrounded by law enforcement, that those fangs might have been making a meal of me. I glared back at him defiantly, equal disgust over every inch of my face. It was him! He was Lily's older guy. I was absolutely sure of it now. Had he killed her in a jealous rage, or had it been an accident, or had it just been an act of contempt, since he clearly thought so little of every other creature except himself? You, I hissed. You're the one. I know it, you dirty old toe rag. The vampire's entire face contorted with rage. He looked like he was going to explode. A hand seized me by the upper arm and dragged me away from the vampire. It was Agent Constantine. I glared at him. That's Willie the Shank, cried an astonished voice, distracting us all. The second security guard had come over to the side of the pool for a quick peek and was leaning over it now with a look of absolute shock on his face. Who? Said Agent Constantine sharply. The security guard immediately looked like he regretted his outburst. He was looking at Oberon Sr. apologetically and muttered, Sorry, boss. Agent Constantine was writing the name Willie the Shank in his notepad. Did he work here? He asked the security guard. The security guard didn't say anything. He looked at Oberon Sr. nervously. We'll find out soon enough when we dig him out of there, said Agent Constantine impatiently. Am I going to find out that he's wearing a uniform like your one? The security guard looked down in dismay at his own black uniform, which had the club logo on it, and then he reluctantly nodded. He was part of the team, didn't show up for work a few days ago, but Willie was never reliable. What day? I asked sharply. Was it Wednesday night or Thursday? Thursday was the day that I found Lily in my garden. The security guard looked like he was scanning his brains. Then he nodded. Yeah, Thursday. He didn't show up for work that day. You weren't suspicious when he didn't show up? Demanded Agent Constantine. The security guard shook his head. Nah, we thought maybe the boss had fired him because of the, fight. His voice trailed off, and he shot a very frightened look at his boss. What fight? Agent Constantine demanded. The security guard swallowed hard, but refused to say anything more. Did you fire him? Said Agent Constantine, turning to Oberon Sr. The vampire shook his head. I should have. The damn fool was selling product in my club. By product, I knew he meant drugs. I wouldn't have thought you'd mind a bit of product, I said. Anything that helps your customers have a little fun and spend more money seems to work for you. Oberon Sr. bared his fangs at me. Tut, tut, naughty vampire, I said, waggling my finger disapprovingly. You shut your filthy mouth, he said. For some reason, I did not feel particularly frightened. I had lost my sense of self-preservation, it seemed. Or maybe it was my inhibitions that had gone out of the window with that drink that Lorcan had tampered with. He had put something in it to try to make trouble for a Westbrim. The sneaky git! I knew it for sure now, and yet I couldn't stop myself. Somebody's in trouble, I said in a sing-song voice to Oberon Sr. Then I turned to the security guard. Was your buddy Willie the Shank here on Wednesday night? I asked. Wednesday night was when Oberon Jr. and Lily and their friends had been here at the club, the night that she had died. I'll ask the questions, said Agent Constantine to me. He turned to the security guard and was forced to repeat what I had just said. Was he here on Wednesday night? I sniggered. I felt Agent Constantine stiffen up a little beside me, and it was all I could do not to burst into laughter. Yeah, said the security guard, scratching his head. I think it was Wednesday when I last saw him. Ha! I said to Chris. That matches my theory. You need to take this pervy perv in for questioning, Agent Constantine, and I pointed at Oberon Sr. What did you call me? The vampire hissed. Pervy perv, I said a little more slowly. Allegra and Jasper couldn't help but snigger, which they tried to muffle with their hands. How dare you speak to me like that, said Oberon Sr. He looked at his security guard. I want you to escort these three off the premises at once. You will not, said Agent Constantine. They will be staying right here until I have finished with them. The security guard nodded, but shot a nervous look at his boss. Sorry, sir, he mumbled. Oberon Sr. looked like he was going to fire the guy immediately. Either that or rip his head off. The security guy swallowed hard. I grinned at Oberon Sr., even though I knew it would goad him to the point of no return. So, perv, are you going to admit that you knew Lily Silverswift too? I said. Don't even bother denying it, because I bet this entire club is full of people who must have seen you two together. Agent Constantine did not even object to my line of questioning. He looked like he wanted to know this himself. "She was nothing but trash," snarled Oberon Sr. My eyebrows shot up towards my hairline. "Oh, really? Your son was very interested in her. He didn't think she was trash." "She was a good-for-nothing nobody," he sneered. "A mediocre witch. My boy had no real interest in her." "Liar," I said. "Liar, liar, pants on fire. I bet you had the hots for her. I bet it really peeved you off that she preferred your son. After all, he is better than you, younger, more handsome, a daywalker. He's a dampire, and you're nothing but a vampire." I had gone too far. Oberon Sr. went for me. One moment he was standing there, the next moment he was a blur coming at me, so incredibly fast it took my breath away. Allegra shouted. Her wand swerved up towards us. There was a blast, a shield charm, and it saved Chris Constantine from some serious damage because he had thrown himself between me and Oberon Sr. The force of the shield charm threw Oberon Sr. onto the ground. Agent Constantine was already on top of him, shackling him with special restraints. He looked up at me with disgust. "You're all under arrest," he said. Hi, you've reached the end. Comment the code words, "But what would Miss Marple think?" to confuse everyone who hasn't reached this part of the story yet. Thanks for playing along.